In the Appalachian Mountains of the Tennessee Valley, a job is getting done. With quiet confidence and purpose of mind, these men stand on the shoulders of those who came before them.
Coming up on the hook.
They work for something greater than themselves. They work for the people of the Tennessee Valley.
We're going to the other side.
Keepers of a legendary lifeline, they maintain more than 16,000 miles of aluminum and steel that connect nearly 9 million people to a promise. Promise of power.
It ain't going nowhere. Get out of it.
That promise started with President Franklin Roosevelt and a revolutionary idea called the Tennessee Valley Authority. Born to conquer the hardships of a rugged land and take the poorest part of the country out of the darkness. Norris Dam. It was TVA's historic first dam. It was built to end a life-or-death battle the people waged against an unforgiving land. It is a world John Rice Irwin and his family once called home.
Staunch, fearless, independent people who settled the region. They came into the wilderness with nothing most of the time except 2 or 3 tools and a rifle.
They scraped out a life in a cruel Appalachian wild that succumbed every year to a raging baptism of the Tennessee. There was no escaping these deadly floods.
Came this cloudburst during the night and washed the entire hollow out. I believe 21 people were drowned. Many of them hung to trees and limbs during the night.
The punishing river devoured homes, farms, entire towns. And it stripped the land. Droughts scorched the landscape. Crops withered to dust. At the height of the Depression, much of the valley was living 100 years behind the rest of the country, until President Franklin Roosevelt took a heroic step forward.
In spirit, we join with millions of others, men and women and
On May
children.
18, 1933, he signed one of the first programs of his daring New Deal into being, the Tennessee Valley Authority, the TVA. The TVA's first gift of hope would be a colossus of concrete, Norris Dam. But to build Norris, the TVA would need to submerge 34,000 acres, drowning everything generations had struggled to build. TVA land agents asked destitute families for the only thing they had left to give, their land, in exchange for payment and a chance to save the valley.
My Aunt Nan pretty much summed it up when she was approached by the TVA land buyer. She said that I have 3 little babies buried up there on the hill under the cedar trees. And my only desire was to live out the rest of my days here among my family and my friends and among my people. But you say that this is going to help a lot of people. It's going to save people's lives. So if this is true, then we're ready to leave. They did and moved peaceably.
To help ease their pain, the TVA relocated over 5,000 grave sites to new resting places.
The TVA did move the bodies of all the relatives, and they did it with compassion. People respected that, and maybe were a little surprised and grateful. I guess that's the best word.
One by one, families packed their weary lives into trunks, wagons, and automobiles.
The last load that we had moving from Union County was some of the furniture. And as we pulled out, I was riding in the back of the truck. And looking back at the house, I realized it would probably be the last time I would ever see the house because they was tearing them down. I can remember pulling off, and I think I cried a little bit when we pulled out, going down the lane to the road, looking at the house, realizing that was the last time I would ever see the house.
Finally, after great effort and upheaval, Norris Dam was completed in 1936. Its waters rose, and in a final all-consuming flood, a great people's sacrifice was sealed forever. Norris was the first of many dams and improvements that the TVA brought to the valley. It was the beginning of taking a desperate part of our country out of the darkness and into the future.
I think my grandfather was right in telling friends and neighbors and relatives that the TVA was going to bring about much more good than the bad. I think he was right.
Norris was the heroic first step. The rest of the valley was soon to follow. Everything was about to radically transform with the TVA's help. But that first spark of electricity, that's the change that people remember most.
It was magic, that electricity was. They called it juice.
She was standing in front of the sink with the water running full bore out of this one faucet that came through the wall. And she had her apron pulled up to her face, and she was crying. And that just made such an impression on me. She was just so happy to have water in the house, and that's what electricity had done.
When I look at this switch box, it means more to me than the electricity that I have today, because this was a lifesaver in our family.
When Leo Cobb looks back on his life, among the things he cherishes most is his family's first fuse box, which he has kept for 70 years now. For him, it was not the first light bulb. It was the first open door.
I shudder to think what life would have been like had TVA not come. TVA made the difference in what we would have been and what we turned out to be.
Leo grew up in rural Alabama in the 1930s. The color of his skin kept him from most opportunities, not that there were many to go around. His family, like most, farmed a dead landscape and lived in poverty of the harshest kind. The TVA gave thousands across the valley the opportunity to work and to rise, to take control of their futures, and to provide for their families. Leo will never forget his first day at the TVA.
I started with everybody else, and we all had the same chance. And that's one of the things that meant so much to me, to be in on the ground floor, and I was able to either rise or fall on my own. And I found out that if you work hard, you get in there and try, then you can succeed as well as anybody else.
Across the valley, Leo's story is the story of millions.
5-6 million people were lost souls. They saw no hope. They saw no way they were going to be able to raise their family and feed their family. They saw no way they were going to be able to educate their family. They were just there, destitute. And coming from that to, hey, I'm in control. It's on me. I can do it. I know how to do it. I've got the tools here to do it. I just have to do it. The tools weren't there before. And you saw in that short period of time the sort of the dignity of the valley. Just the TVA helped lift the dignity of the valley.
Dignity came in the form of flood control, electricity, and running water. Thousands of new jobs, fertilizers, and better planting techniques for farmers. But these tools on their own weren't enough to change the complexion of a devastated region 7 states wide in a few short years.
You can't just go build a dam and create some electricity and that's going to make a whole lot of things happen. But that's not the story of why TVA worked. They had to get the entire fabric of the valley, people involved, and it was done by using that strange term, partnership. Municipalities taking people that they walked among every day and trusted to show them, demonstrate to them how this worked.
The TVA created the power, but it was the local power companies that connected it to each home. It revolutionized farming techniques, but universities helped farmers understand them. It created jobs, but labor unions taught workers their craft. The TVA cannot take credit for changing the valley's course. It simply gave people what they needed to do it for themselves.
Someone has said, your children are messages that you send on to a time that you will never know. And I'm very proud that TVA was able to provide a better life for my family and me. And I'm very proud that I was able to pass it on to my children, and hopefully that they'll pass it on to theirs.
Wilson Dam. When Senator George Norris introduced Roosevelt to this monument to human struggle in 1932, it inspired the president to start the TVA.
Wilson Dam and the Tennessee River has been a part of my life, my entire life. I'm so connected to this area that I don't know if I could really live anywhere else. My father left the Birmingham area seeking a brighter future, and I think he must have seen that that was possible here in Muscle Shoals, and that would have to be because of TVA bringing prosperity to the area.
In the early 30s, Muscle Shoals' population was just over 1,000. It was a poor, 3-intersection town. But a spark came to this city that allowed its talents to blossom. When the TVA harnessed the power of the river for electricity, they put the existing Wilson Dam to work and created a fertilizer industry that would revive the Tennessee Valley. It was so advanced that scientists came from around the world to know its secrets. Work was everywhere, and people were flocking to Muscle Shoals for jobs. Suddenly, Muscle Shoals was on the map. TVA had helped transform this struggling farming community into a place where the American dream could come true. In 1959, a young bass player was dreaming about where music could take him. $10. That's what David Hood earned when he answered a call to play bass behind up-and-coming R&B artist Clarence Carter. Too Weak to Fight went gold. And the son of a former TVA pipefitter was on his way to making music history.
When we got our own studio, the Muscle Shoals Sound Studios, our first artist was Cher. Then the Rolling Stones came. After that, Bob Seger, Paul Simon, Art Garfunkel, Bob Dylan, Rod Stewart. We were working day and night. Some weeks we would record as many as 40 or 50 songs or tracks for different artists.
In less than 2 decades, Muscle Shoals pumped out more than 80 hit records, branding this once poor little farming town the unlikely hit recording capital of the world. David sees the TVA as being an integral part of this transformation.
TVA became more than just the people who took over the dam. They helped flood control. They helped the farmers. They started making fertilizer for peacetime uses. They taught people about soil erosion. They had a bigger part in this area than just having a dam that made electricity. They tried to influence a greater part of the life here.
Legacy is a word you hear a lot about here in Muscle Shoals. It honors accomplishment, hard work, and carrying on the spirit of a people that changed their own course. TVA's promise of a fair price for power brought hundreds of factories and industries to the valley. It was this ability to turn the river into power that lured one of America's most revolutionary technologies to the valley, one that would change the world and bring us into the atomic age. It all started during World War II. The United States learned of Germany's plans to build an atomic bomb. To win the war, the U.S. had to build the bomb first. The site for the atomic laboratory required 2 things: secrecy and power. Tennessee was the answer. It had rugged mountains, and most importantly, the TVA. To help complete the monumental task of building the world's first atomic bomb, Roosevelt once again called on the hard-working men and women of the TVA. Engineers quickly retrofitted plans for a future dam, and workers began tirelessly building Douglas Dam. The dam was finished on March 13, 1943. It took less than 13 months to build, and still holds the record for the fastest dam built of its size. Then, on August 6, 1945, in a flash of radiation on the other side of the world, Oak Ridge's secret was revealed to mankind. Little Boy, the world's first atomic bomb, was dropped on Hiroshima, taking tens of thousands of lives. Unexpectedly, this government nuclear testing facility, Oak Ridge, built during World War II, powered by the TVA, birthplace of the atomic bomb, is forever woven deeply into the fabric of this poet's life.
I think much good and brave work was done here. I think, unfortunately, a lot of people in the popular sense think of nuclear energy as only the bomb, only weapons, when in fact there are millions of people who from the same reactor are getting radiation treatment for cancer. The atom came in on the waters of TVA. TVA makes the dam and the energy flows, and then a town is born, the atom is born. You're part of that community, and then when you're ill, something produced by that community heals you, and it all circles back to an energy source.
Harnessing nature for power is a privilege that has not always been without controversy or mistakes. In 1978, Teleco Dam became a battle line. One of the TVA's smaller dams, it sparked a giant controversy. Its main goal was not power, but recreation and opportunity. It would drown almost 16,000 acres. Teleco's lake was to be a playground, its shores a lure for business. It was a hard sell for many. For some, it was unforgivable. Cherokee Indians losing sacred sites. Environmentalists losing a life-giving river. 300 farmers losing priceless family land. They did what none had ever tried. They united to fight the TVA. At a cost of over $100 million, the dam stood 95% complete. All that stood in Teleco's way were its enemies, until they found a most unusual secret weapon, this curious little fish. Tiny, unseen for centuries, it held the power to stop Teleco. Under the Endangered Species Act, the snail darter was untouchable, and completing Teleco Dam impossible. A little fish and a little dam started a fight so big it became a front-page showdown. Teleco's battle line reached Washington, D.C., where Tennessee Senator Howard Baker saw things in a different way.
We spent all this money on this dam. The TVA says that I believe it's demonstrably beneficial to the economic and recreational development of the area. And that's when I absolutely decided that I would support Teleco and would oppose the effort to stop it.
Senator Baker was determined. Taxpayers' money was at stake. He wrote the go-ahead for Teleco into the fine print of a bill which barely passed. With one motion of President Carter's pen, the snail darter was condemned. The historic struggle ended with the flip of a switch. Teleco's gates closed on November 29, 1979. The snail darter would be gone from the Little Tennessee River forever. The snail darter proved to be more of a survivor than expected. After Teleco was completed, the fish was found in other parts of the Tennessee. Although not extinct, the snail darter controversy had left a black mark on TVA's reputation. Jeff Simmons is a biologist and an unlikely TVA employee.
Well, I've been fortunate enough at TVA to get involved in a project to monitor a species called the blue-masked darter. I think it's great that TVA's doing work towards species restoration, especially since TVA has had a history where TVA was going to have a serious impact on endangered species, and now TVA is out there sending biologists to provide information on rare species, to find ways to make sure that whole ecosystems stay together and that these rivers don't just fall apart.
Today, Jeff is one of over 100 TVA biologists keeping a watchful eye on the Tennessee Valley's thousands of rare species.
I'll hear about places like the rainforest and about the habitat loss there and how we need to save those areas. Well, this region is very similar. There are more species in Tennessee, fish species, than all of Europe. It's a biological hotspot. And that's why I get sort of frustrated sometimes about how quickly things can disappear. And there's so many species that are in trouble here that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I feel that I am working for the people of the United States of America because TVA has a commitment to the people of America so that they'll be able to enjoy these resources where they live in the Tennessee Valley.
The work of the great men and women who laid the valley's foundation stands tall today. Forever part of the Tennessee Valley landscape, they are testaments to a remarkable revolutionary idea whose future still lies in the hands of the people it was made for, the people of the United States of America, the people of the Tennessee Valley.
My granddaddy told me when he was just 7 years old, his daddy lost work and they didn't have a road up. Not near enough to eat. 7 boys, 3 girls. They lived in a tent, bunch of sharecroppers versus the world. So his mama sat down and wrote a letter to FDR. And a couple days later, some county men came in a car. They rode out in the field, told his daddy to put down the plow. He helped build a dam, gave power to most of the South. And so I thank God for the TVA. Thank God for the TVA, where Roosevelt let us all work for an honest day's pay. Thank God for the TVA. Thank God for the TVA.